Hello, magnificent human beings. My name is Landon with Yoga New Mexico, where we focus on empowerment, alignment, and strength. You are in the right place, capable and strong. What are we doing today? We are going to do bridge pose. That is setu bandhasana. So if you would like to learn how to better do bridge pose, this is the very short class educational piece for you. Go ahead, roll out your mat, and I will roll the intro screen. Thank you so much for being here. It is time to look at bridge pose, setu bandhasana. First thing I want to say is that setu bandhasana, bridge pose, but also if you have heard setu bandha sarvangasana, then it's the same thing. In many yoga postures, there's often 2, 3, 4, even 5 different names for the exact same pose. And yes, every sort of lineage does things slightly different, but it's basically still bridge pose. So that's what we are going to look at. Go ahead, lay down on your mat, and we'll look at some of the fundamentals. Starting off in your bridge pose, you will here bring your heels up next to your glutes and palms down on the mat. And this is fine, but oftentimes people place their heels too close to their glutes. So here's an extreme example is when you bring your heels way close to your glutes and then you start to lift up. You have your knees way beyond your ankles. So ideally, you want those knees on top of your ankles. And oftentimes I've heard, fingertips touching your heels here is kind of a good indicator. And that way when you lift up, they're closer. And it doesn't need to be perfect because maybe this keeps you perfectly stacked or, if it's way too far, well, then you're going to tell the difference. So just use your best judgment. You don't want to have too extreme of an too extreme of your feet being too far out or your heels being too close to your glutes. So relatively close. And oftentimes there's this element of elbows into the mat and then lifting on up. And I like this because it kind of encourages you to roll those shoulders back. And if you choose to do this, that's perfectly fine. Otherwise, keeping your hands on the mat is cool too. So lifting on up. And then I often talk to people about waddling your shoulder blades in because that will really help to get that length that you need. So you kind of just rock gently, and this sets you up to be able to lift a little bit higher. And then if you want, you can interlace those fingers underneath. So that's pretty much the basics of your bridge pose. And there are 2 elements I'd like to talk about real briefly that are very subtle in bridge that we don't really hear too much. The first one is your neck. So talking about how your neck is in bridge pose, you should never look left or right. You really want to keep your eye gaze straight up because we don't want to tax those cervical vertebrae any more than we need to. So laying down, looking at your bridge pose here, say you have your shoulders waddled in and you're set up here pretty good. Well, oftentimes people really keep bringing their chin into their chest, which you don't really need to do in bridge pose. Rather, bring your eye gaze up and lengthen in your neck just a little bit. So we're already crunching kind of in our neck area because of how we're lifting up, right? So we don't want to do this anymore by bringing your chin into your chest. Just keep your eye gaze at neutral and think lengthen your neck. Create a little space in that neck because it's already being, challenged here anyways. So instead of this, do this. And I'm not saying look up, like don't do the opposite example where you're picking up your head and you're looking all the way at the top. That's not what we want to do. It's rather, instead of crunching it in, it's more of a gentle lengthening. So, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about as you lift up into your bridge pose. And again, as with most, cues in yoga, we hear them and then we automatically do the extreme example. So again, it's very subtle. It's not reaching your neck back as hard and as far as you can. It's simply, instead of bringing your chin into your chest, setting your head nice and flat on the mat, and then a very gentle lengthening. Nothing serious, just a little. And you'll get the feeling of that'll create kind of a little bit more space in your cervical vertebrae there, which is good because we don't want to collapse into that area. The next thing that I want to talk about is how you should be breathing in your bridge pose. So you come on up into your bridge and you have your shoulder blades waddled in and your feet are a good distance apart and you're pretty much set up. And then I think we forget about breathing in bridge pose. So really your breath should be pretty big. So I always tell people to envision that your belly button is the highest point on your body because this really helps. And it's nice because you can actually see that belly button rise and fall, or at least you can see your stomach rise and fall as you're breathing. And those little simple tricks help to bring us, I think, more into our practice, because if you hear the instructor say, breathe, and you think, I am breathing, because we're always breathing. But those actual physical cues sometimes really help to bring you into that present moment even more, because you can see your belly rise, you can see it fall. And so it links up the mental notion of, oh, breathe, with a physical action. So thank you so much for being here. If you have questions, comments, concerns, anything, put them in the comments below. I will get back to you. Do not forget to subscribe. That means the world to me. And I love you guys. You're awesome. So from my heart to yours, you are a magnificent human being in the right place, capable and strong. Namaste.